Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called I Will Become the Villain's Poison Detector. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! The story begins in a prison where our main character, Giselle Lloydsvin, is being pestered by an assassin. She appears bored hearing the same old, "I came to kill you" phrase from the killers who want to poison her to death, so she willingly takes the vial from the man and drinks it. Even after downing the entire bottle, she looks lively, and she even says it tastes like strawberry milk, which shocks the assassin, given that just a little bit of the poison is lethal. He takes it from Giselle and tries the poison, believing he may have brought the wrong vial, but then immediately kills himself, leaving Giselle to sigh. Giselle is a villainess in the novel The Poison Apple, which our ordinary girl office worker here enjoys reading because it is a heartbreaking romantic story in which everyone dies, including the main characters and villains. Giselle is the first villain character to die early in the novel, poisoned in prison while waiting to be hanged. She adores the novel, but little did she know that after being involved in a car accident on her way home, she transmigrated and found herself in Giselle's body. Just as she woke up, an assassin forced her to drink the poison. But when she said it tasted like strawberry syrup, the guy tried it and died. Since then, several assassins have come and ended up killing themselves. They are not very savvy about trying the vials. One thing she learned by drinking many types of poison is that each has a different flavor. The poor girl has been gulping them like water, and now she just sits in the corner, hoping that the next assassin will deliver her far better poison. After stating her wish, she hears someone laughing and feels terrified, believing it's a ghost. The person then giggles, claiming that he isn't a ghost, but he is still not revealing himself. So Giselle guesses he's an assassin and requests that he wait until the last poison in her body has been digested properly, causing the man to laugh so hard again. He performs magic, and a red poison emerges in front of Giselle. But unlike previous poisons, this one smells unpleasant, so she is unsure whether it's safe to drink. But now that she's given it some thought, she realizes her character is destined to die, and that is something she refuses to accept. In an attempt to bargain with the mysterious assassin, she asks him to rescue her from prison if she doesn't die from the poison he gave her. But the guy is certain that she won't make it out alive. After all, she is a very wicked witch, and wanted posters for her are up everywhere. Despite her stained reputation, Giselle seeks to see the bright side of things, arguing that she can still find a place in the world, even if it means working for a villain. The guy finds her response hilarious and wonders whose villain she intends to work for, only to discover that she plans to work for Wayne Aore. However, they are interrupted mid-sentence by the entrance of a second assassin, who proceeds to use a key to unlock her cell and stab her. Giselle takes the poison fast in the hopes that the mysterious man will do what she says, and to her relief, he does. Using his magical abilities, he makes the assassin vanish in a second. Then he emerges, looking dashing with his jet black hair and crimson eyes. He is gorgeous! Giselle is taken aback by the assassin's decision to expose his face, but she finds herself charmed by the man's stunning good looks. Same girl, same! When he takes the vial, she thinks he's just as stupid as everyone else and will test the poison to make sure it's deadly. But when he just keeps the vial, Giselle is overjoyed to have finally met an intelligent assassin. The encounters with the dumb killers have worn her down. The guy then activates a teleportation magic circle, and our girl is instantly freed from prison. However, Giselle can't bring herself to rejoice as it feels so easy. But that changes when this handsome man bluntly reminds her that, even though she's now out of prison, she will be recorded as a witch who escaped using black magic, resulting in a large bounty on her head and certain death if caught. According to what she recalls, the villains in the story employ black magic, and Wayne Aore, the final villain, brought in black mages to face the male lead. So the figure in front of her could be a black mage from the Dark Cloud organization, which Wayne leads. This is becoming more problematic because she didn't mean to work for Wayne previously, but she simply blurted it out. She hesitantly inquires about his name and finds out that he is Lenel. Since his name does not sound familiar, she speculates that he could be an extra in the novel, and a particularly gorgeous one. Lenel already knows that Giselle is lying when she says that she will work for his boss, Wayne, so he agrees not to disclose anything negative about her. Giselle appears to be at ease now, so Lenel has to ask her what her next strategy is, given that they are directly next to the prison tower where she was held up. He said so casually as Giselle shrieks, recognizing that this guy did not take her any further away. So she uses her cute, lovely face to persuade Lenel to help her. But then he leans closer to her and asks what he will get in exchange. Just then, they hear soldiers looking for her, so this guy teases her even more, claiming he would keep her until a high bounty is placed on her head before returning her to the guards. But he is startled when Giselle says she can provide him with information in return. Giselle tries to pitch Lenel on the fact that it isn't just any information, but it may even help him get promoted because she knows the future of certain significant individuals, including his boss Wayne. It sounds intriguing, but her statement is too absurd for Lenel to believe. So she attempts to reason that something entered her body as a result of the poison she ingested, giving her the power to foretell the future. After hearing Giselle's confession, Lenel takes things seriously and reveals that prior to her imprisonment, Giselle tried to sacrifice a black mage in order to obtain more power through forbidden magic. So the actual reason he came up in prison was to see if Giselle succeeded with the forbidden magic, and if she did, he intends to investigate it. Lenel then holds her hand and reveals that the magic is known as the corruption of a star, and it allows you to summon someone from the outside world and wield their power, which makes him believe that someone is inside Giselle's body. Wow, their first meeting has already brought up the topic of our girl's transmigration. Still, she is quietly sobbing now that she understands why she transmigrated. After all, she's only an ordinary sleep-deprived office worker with no stake in their world. However, she does not want to tell him the truth, so she withdraws her hand and confidently declares that she is Giselle Lloydsfin. Lenel does not inquire more, but he used his evil aura to inform her that he could gain that essential information through a variety of methods, which our girl interprets as her being dissected. She immediately says she will cooperate with him and trembles like a baby chick on the side, leaving Lenel confused and certain that she isn't Giselle, because the nasty witch he knows isn't this submissive. So he smirks and asks her to prove her worth, forcing her to confess that she can detect the taste of poison. But when he acts uninterested, she reveals a future event. Wayne, his boss, will be poisoned. That said, she can serve as Wayne's poison taster. Everything went smoothly, and Lenel did not dissect her or hand her over to the guards, but she ended up working as a cashier at a store that sells cursed items. This is because Lenel still does not believe Giselle's claim. Therefore, she must take all the poisons sold in his shop and distinguish and categorize them based on their flavor. Giselle has been a temporary employee at the shop for 10 days, but she hasn't seen Lenel in 3 days, so she's been spending all her time alone with the cursed doll she named Isabel. That's more like an Annabelle to me. Just then, 10, a silver-haired man with a charming smile, enters with a package in hand. He is an apprentice black mage whose duty is to deliver things to Lenel's shop. But while Giselle has worked there, no one has purchased anything, and all the villains have simply left off large boxes. 10 assures her that villains occasionally stop by to buy stuff, then examines his bag and hands her today's poison. She hastily plugs her nose because the smell indicates that the poison is durian-flavored, but 10 has no idea what she's talking about. After getting into the novel's universe and meeting 10 and Lenel, she suspects that she really is the only one who can smell and taste poison. After 10 leaves, she is left alone and bored, so she decides that this is her chance to escape, knowing that even though Lenel is being nice to her now, there is no guarantee that he will not dissect her someday. So she puts on a black cloak and steals several poisons and money before leaving the shop. Yet, she comes to a sudden halt in an alleyway upon seeing a guard post, in close proximity to the villain's shop no less. Given the number of armored guards and her wanted posters, she finds it baffling that she has managed to remain safe at that little curse shop for so long. At that very moment, Lenel appears behind her and teases her, saying that the guards would likely see her if she walks any further away. I knew this escape mission of hers wouldn't work. Giselle swiftly clarifies, or rather fabricates, the story about how she was honestly going for a walk and not attempting to escape, prompting Lenel to give her a not-so-innocent smile. But it's still charming, though, given that he knows she has poisons with her and even stole some money for her walk. She's sweating and trying to think of an excuse when they hear a troop of soldiers approaching, leading her to panic and hide behind Lenel's cloak. They are cute. However, Giselle realizes that if she stays like that, she will appear suspicious. So she pulls Lenel closer to her and requests that they pretend to kiss. Our girl has read so many novels for sure! Meanwhile, Lenel appears to like taunting her, so he grins at her request, presses her against the wall, leans forward, and looks deeply into her eyes as if they are lovers. Giselle is a strong woman. If that were me, I would pass out. She averts her gaze out of shyness, but that just leads her to lock eyes with a guard. Our guy looks incredibly relaxed and doesn't care about the guards, even though Giselle is already crying and hitting him, begging him to hide her with a hug or a kiss. However, Giselle becomes perplexed when the guards merely walk by, which stops Lenel's teasing and explains that the guards were unable to notice them due to the illusion magic that causes them to believe the alley is a dead end. Giselle drops to her knees in relief after finally evading capture. But lady, you nearly forgot your boss had just caught you escaping. So Lenel urges her to return and mentions that they need to finish things up, which she believes will result in punishment. She trembles in dread, fearing she'll be tortured, while Lenel stands there laughing and clearly enjoying seeing her like that. So he jokes with her again, stating he can torment her there once and for all since no one can see them, forcing our girl to stand up and rush to the shop to get to work. While she hurries back to the shop, Lenel finally lets out a giggle as he finds Giselle so funny and charming. Look at that smile! Returning to the curse store, Giselle presents Lenel with a research paper detailing the poison's flavors. Lenel is taken aback by the document because it's well organized, which is not something the real Giselle would do. Even now, when he sees how nervous she is, he can't help but giggle and become intrigued by her true identity. Your girl is just a corporate slave who enjoys reading novels. Lenel then asks about her real name, but she insists on saying she's Giselle, which he finds amusing because she always appears so meek, but suddenly turns serious when it comes to her identity. She may seem like the Wicked Witch Giselle, but her behavior makes her seem like an entirely different person to him. Truly, he recognizes her for who she is. However, Lenel chooses to refer to her as Giselle and simply lets her be. After that, he says how impressive her poison list is, but he still has suspicions about her, given that she attempted to escape with his money. Speaking of money, Giselle realizes that Lenel has no intention of ever paying her for her work, which enrages her. Yet Lenel smiles at the sight of her, picturing her as an adorable little chick. Lenel then summons two of his butterfly familiars to keep an eye on her, but it appears that Giselle is unconcerned about being watched and is simply in love with the butterflies. He smiles at how happy she appears, but then recalls that Giselle also claims to foretell the future of other important people, including Wayne Aore, and wonders why she wants to work for him. He discovers that Giselle wants to work for Wayne because he is the strongest villain, and she intends to be his court lady, testing all the food he eats to ensure it isn't poisonous. With glitter in her eyes, Giselle asks Lenel if he can set up a meeting so she can meet Wayne Aore, but he firmly says no, explaining that if she becomes Wayne's food taster, she will have no choice but to follow his schedule and be with him all day, which Lenel cannot allow. This worries Giselle, but her spirits are lifted when Lenel promises to pay her a monthly payment for her work as his store clerk. However, her joy is short-lived when he clarifies that she will only receive a salary once she becomes a full-time employee. Cutie. Lenel is about to leave when she calls him and approaches him, leading him to believe she has another goal, such as pretending to be dumb in order to approach Wayne Aore and assassinate him. So he secretly prepares his butterflies for any unexpected attack. But it appears that Giselle is only concerned with her employment contract with him and wants all issues to be straightforward to avoid future disputes. Giselle rushes to write something on a piece of paper, while Lenel laughs heartily and decides to keep her on his side. After connecting with his familiars, Lenel's visits become less frequent, giving her more opportunities to take walks in the alley. She's fine with being monitored because she finds the butterflies beautiful, and she can clearly show Lenel that she doesn't intend to leave whenever she takes a walk with the butterflies. Just then, Ten, wearing a grin, walks into the store and tells her he's going to purchase Isabel, her fave cursed doll. After a brief exchange of words, he thanked her and left the store. As she prepares to greet the next customer, the orange-haired man raises his voice, strikes the table, and accuses her of being a death row convict who is unfit to work at Lenel's shop. Giselle tries to calm him down and explain that Lenel did give her the job, causing the young man to sob as it is supposed to be his spot. He becomes enraged and demands to know where Lenel is, but when she says that it is difficult for her to connect with the boss, he begins ranting, even causing Ten to return to the shop. Ten hears the commotion and rushes to check on Giselle, forcing the orange-haired man to dash out of the business, bumping with 10 and leaving Giselle perplexed. That day, she decides to sit in the alley, feeling safe because illusion magic has been applied to it, and watches the people stroll by. She can't walk about freely because her posters are everywhere. But staying inside is also suffocating, so this is her method of unwinding. Just then, the butterflies begin to fly wildly in front of her, as if telling her to return. But she insists that no one can see her, so she glances over the street and notices an armored man. The guy's dazzling appearance with blonde hair and emerald eyes reminds her of the main character, Dylan Starcy. She takes a moment to process the situation before she realizes the man is Dylan, and what's worse is that they were both looking at each other. She immediately rushes to the shop, as illusion magic is ineffective on Dylan because he is an essence seer. Without wasting any time, she locks the store, shuts all the windows, and ducks under the counter. As far as she knows, Dylan should have been at the female lead's mansion, but she recognizes that because Giselle was not executed as written in the novel, the plot has been twisted. She will undoubtedly die if they ever meet, so she tries speaking with the butterflies to send Lenel when she suddenly hears someone walking outside, causing her to sweat profusely and attempting to avoid making any noise by covering her mouth. Next, the sound gets louder as the person tries to unlock the store's door. However, the man eventually leaves, much to her relief. Our girl attempts to remain hopeful, believing that Dylan won't come after her because she's only a minor villain. But this changes when she remembers that the real Giselle attempted to endanger the female lead's life, Dylan's lover. Whoopsie. The next day, the same arrogant orange-haired customer arrives at the shop, claiming that he needs to deliver something to Lenel. But since the boss is away, he aggressively insists that Giselle help him move the packages instead. Smells fishy. He explains that the alley leading to the shop is too narrow for the wagon, so she must help him unload them. Giselle doesn't want to go near the streets after what happened yesterday, but as the guy becomes increasingly irate and threatens to report her to Lenel, she has no choice but to follow. Now that they've arrived at the wagon, this guy asks that she climb up and pass him the package, because if they do it the other way around, Giselle may be unable to bear the weight of the package from below. She groans, wraps herself in a coat, and climbs up. But as she scans the boxes, a blade from behind points at her neck. This villain with orange hair has sold Giselle to Dylan! I knew it! That cheeky guy is no good. Dylan then orders the carriage to begin moving while bringing his sword closer to Giselle's throat. The moment she claims to be an innocent girl, Dylan mocks her, which only serves to infuriate him more. Dylan goes on to say that he knows Giselle has absorbed an evil entity, which makes our girl question his credibility as a seer, as she is absolutely not wicked. He has the intention of killing her, but before he does so, he wants to put out the devil that she has summoned. Is he talking about the forbidden magic that caused our transmigration to their world? Hearing the word devil reminds her that in the novel, a black mage formed a deal with the devil and was burned as punishment using white magic. She cannot allow herself to be burned alive, so the surge of bravery to talk back to Dylan begins to kick in, as she yells that she's an innocent lady who was just unloading some packages. At that point, she blurts out, likely in a state of panic, that Dylan should use his eyes as a seer to verify her goodness. However, this just makes the guy angrier, and he chokes her while demanding to know how she knew his powers. For a man who's asking our girl a question, he is choking her to the point that she becomes lightheaded and gasps for air, rendering her speechless. This man is no main lead, he is purely psycho! Right then, Lenel's butterflies begin to emerge, so he releases her so he can slice Giselle's adorable surveillance cameras. No! How dare you! After that, Dylan starts to approach Giselle again with the intention of killing her, but just as he is about to do so, a magic circle appears between them, and dark shadows attack him. He doesn't notice the shadow behind him, and as a result, it coils around him and throws him outside of the moving carriage. Yes, he deserves that! Giselle appears to be reeling from the events that have unfolded when, at long last, Lenel makes his appearance. Yay! The boss is here! She starts narrating what occurred, which Lenel immediately believes. However, upon observing her obvious distress, he enveloped her in his coat and inquires if there's anything further she'd want to say than explain. After some thought, Giselle promptly expresses her appreciation for saving her life. He merely stands there, grinning widely and saying nothing, making Giselle worried about the butterflies. but also certain that they are safe owing to Lenel's behavior. She asks him about Dylan, recalling him from when he fell out of a moving carriage, and expresses concern about what would happen if the main character died. When Lenel notices her worried expression, he asks her if she wants Dylan dead, and she firmly says no, because someone else will have to kill him, which is the final villain. She now talks about Dylan as if he's a stranger, making Lenel smirk again because he knows the real Giselle will never allow anyone to hurt the blonde knight, considering that she's supposedly deeply in love with the guy. His amused expression as he finds new evidence that she isn't the real Giselle irritates her. Not gonna lie, our girl is a fun, adorable type of dumb. She then quickly recalls how Giselle Lloydsvin treats Dylan in the novel, remembering that she had a one-sided obsession with him and even used cute terms for him, such as my darling and my love. Despite the embarrassment, she has no choice but to act like the real Giselle and proceed with gushing about how concerned she is about her sweetheart. But this only makes Lenel frown and tell her in a chilly tone that they are going back to the store, much to her confusion. Is this jealousy I smell here, sir? With a flick of his finger, they are suddenly back in the store, which is already incredible, so she can't imagine how powerful Lenel's boss, Wayne Aore, is, and how in the novel he will die from a simple poisoning. She's still thinking about it when Lenel tells her to start packing since he's moving the store, considering that Dylan found its location. As she packs everything and wonders about how they will move it all, he surprises her further by assuring her that he will warp everything to a new store. While Lenel is busy creating a magic circle and she is still packing, she's suddenly reminded of the arrogant orange-haired man who sold her out, and she is astounded that Lenel knows about him as well, thanks to his butterflies. He then gives her an evil smirk and asks whether she is curious about what happened to the man, which this scaredy chick hastily declines. Despite this, Lenel insists that she get closer to him, and she can't help but shake her head in anticipation that he will reveal the horrific things he did to the traitor. He sighs and says he won't show her anything, so she approaches him and is stunned when Lenel simply checks her neck and says it's badly hurt. Gosh, that Dylan guy showed no mercy to our adorable chick! The two exchange intense glances as if time has stopped, and to end whatever's happening, Giselle jokes that she's fine if it's just a bruise. At least she wasn't roasted at the stake. Giselle's last phrase doesn't sound right to Lenel, so he asks her if Dylan really wants to burn her to death. So our girl starts ranting and furiously shares what Dylan did to her. She suddenly pauses, realizing that she is supposed to act as if she's in love, but thanks to her ranting, Lenel's smile has returned, and since she sounds like she loathes Dylan now, he demands that she never call that blonde knight with endearing names again. Now back to business, Lenel assures her that she can take a rest after they warp at the new location. A statement that sounds unusual to her, and makes her feel warm and fuzzy inside. Then, after he prepares the teleportation circle, Lenel urges her to sit by his side and grabs her hand. I'm not sure if the red color is due to the magic circle or if our girl is blushing right now, but off they go. They arrive in a new, more spacious store in a second, but Giselle's attention is drawn to Lenel, who is sweating heavily and staggering to show her her new room. She is worried about how horrible he looks, but he merely grabs her and gently requests that she rest so she has energy to unpack later. Then, without allowing Giselle to speak, Lenel closes her door and leaves. After casting such a big teleportation magic, she is certain that her boss is not in a good state and hopes he rests as well. Can we call this a progress? She then collapses on her bed, grateful to have survived being killed by the main character today. Just recalling it gives her shivers because it was the first time everything felt scary. Lenel does threaten her on occasion, but it's usually gentle and just for fun. So after today, she chooses never to leave Lenel's side because she knows she will be safe there. Meanwhile, Wayne and the other black mages are discussing their preparations for something when Vadrio appears and whispers something into his ear. So this is Wayne, the strongest villain Giselle's been talking about? Following that, the two of them use warp to arrive at a very peaceful-looking estate where they discover Lenel, who is still fatigued. However, something appears strange here. Vadrio and the person our girl believes is the real boss are both bowing their heads to our handsome shop owner. Lenel? It looks like we found the real boss! They then report that Dylan is still alive, but they can't believe Lenel ran into him when he was supposed to be at his estate. And to make matters worse, he discovered the location of their business. Wayne believes there is a spy within their organization, leading Lenel to unleash his overwhelming aura and issue instructions to remove all of his men from the city, and anyone caught by Dylan will be killed immediately. Lenel then orders Wayne to organize a few rallies to divert Dylan's attention, to which he agrees and then departs. In the meantime, Vadrio couldn't resist inquiring about Lenel's motives for bringing Giselle in, to which he cutely replies that the girl has become his employee. This confuses Vadrio, so he advises Lenel that keeping her around may cause problems for them. But just hearing Giselle's name makes him giggle, and he begins rambling nonsense to him, revealing that Giselle is on probation and her nickname is Crazy Giselle. After some time of relaxing, the butterflies appear before him and inform him that Giselle is deep asleep. Oh, yay! The butterflies are alive! Then Lenel walks down what appears to be underground steps and reaches a door, which he uses magic to open, and right away leads him back to their new shop. Seeing how disorganized everything is, he intends to gather additional aid for Giselle. He proceeds to her room as his butterflies start to wonder if they should keep guarding Giselle, to which he responds yes. Lenel has been avoiding Dylan, but because of Giselle, he gets into trouble, so he looks at her and wonders if she's worth the risk. After that, he gives her a light brush and resolves to keep her close until he's sure. Viviana, the novel's female protagonist, heals Dylan's wounds while he's in pain, while Dylan is outraged, merely thinking about Giselle's face and the fact that she joined the Black Mages. He asks her to return home, but she refuses, even when she reminds him of the times Giselle nearly killed her. Viviana believes she will be fine because she heard reports that Giselle has changed, which Dylan rephrases as Giselle becoming crazier. She feels sorry for Giselle, but is she? And wants to purify her while Dylan tells her she isn't worth it and that he will care for her on his own. Dylan is about to leave when Viviana asks about Lenel, demanding to know where he is and what he's up to, but Dylan does not respond, telling her to return immediately the next day. Do the main leads know our guy? Meanwhile, Giselle's eyes widen when the book's villains appeared before her. Sullen, a drug researcher, introduces himself first. He stopped growing due to an inappropriate medicine he took when he was younger, and Dylan hacks off his head in the novel after he uses Viviana in a live experiment. Gilberton is a magic swordsman with basic dark magic abilities, who also acts as Wayne's escort knight. Windria, an elderly woman who acts as Wayne's right-hand woman, is as strong as Vadrio and the only necromancer and curse caster in the novel. Vadrio introduces himself as the building's owner and explains that he called everyone because he heard she needed to organize the place, which makes her pleased to believe that landlords in this world assist in caring for their tenants' stuff, and she expresses her thanks to them. And so they all begin, and while doing so, she learns that Lenel requests Vadrio to assist her with her unpacking since he knows she's scared of touching the cursed items. So thoughtful! After a while, they finish arranging everything, and they all sit at one table having tea, and she discovers that Sullen's clinic is just next to the store. Windria's lab is on Lenel's top floor, and Gilberton's chamber is next door to Windria. Sullen then notices her bruise and tells her that he doesn't have any medicines that can get rid of them, and Windria tells her that she cannot do healing magic. Giselle smiles and assures them that the bruise will heal on its own, but Gilberton adds that it will not because Dylan's mana is comparable to dirty white magic, which is poisonous to people like them. This confuses Giselle, so they explain that Dylan's mana and white magic are the opposite of black magic, which is why it is lethal to all black mages. However, she isn't a black mage, so getting into contact with Dylan's mana should not be a problem. But the villains remind her that she has signed a contract with a black mage and used forbidden magic, which makes her body stained with black magic. While fetching more goodies for the villains, she looks in the mirror and can't believe Dylan used mana to choke her, which Sullen notices and approaches to console her by insulting Dylan. Then, Windria appears, declaring that Giselle is extremely fortunate to have escaped facing the night. Giselle nearly has a heart attack as Gilberton swiftly moves beside her, hands her an ominous bead, and tells her to keep it with her so she can throw it at Dylan when the time comes. He gave our girl an expensive item that they sell in the shop, so she isn't sure if she should be grateful or not. But this guy doesn't seem to mind. Even Sullen believes that she keeps it as a self-defense item because Dylan is extremely dangerous and is notorious for finishing what he starts. Giselle understands this and regrets disclosing Dylan's abilities to him, as his essence-seeing eyes are truly a secret that was not revealed until the end of the novel. Feeling anxious and convinced that Dylan will find her and kill her, she instantly pushes those thoughts out of her mind when Windria pats her shoulder and promises to keep her safe. Sullen, the cheerful old man, and Gilberton, who seems to dislike smiling, agree to do the same. Giselle feels warm, but politely declines their assistance, claiming that she's okay and can protect herself. But Windria cuts her off, pats her head, and scolds her, saying that all she needs to do is thank them. Aww, I'm sure Windria will become her mother figure in the novel world. Giselle begins to cry unknowingly, prompting the villains to become concerned. So she hastily dries her eyes and confesses that she's never heard of someone offering to protect her. She had always handled things on her own, even in her own world, so our girl must have been waiting for those words to be spoken to her for a long time. To make Giselle feel better, Gilberton declares to protect her, and Sullen even states that he will allow her to hide behind his clinic. Just hearing them talk about how they hope to help her makes her giggle, and oddly, the cursed item she was previously afraid to touch seems warm now. She's starting to like the baddies, and I'm all for it. Everything is ready in the store, and she is about to open it to clients in order to make money, when Lenel surprises her from behind. Giselle then observes that he still does not appear to be in good health, but Lenel simply shifts the conversation to her crying and teases her about how he got a report about it. Giselle is embarrassed, and Lenel continues to joke around, claiming that she pushed herself to thank him for saving her life, but can't believe she sobbed when the others promised to protect her. However, this causes Giselle to become serious, stating clearly that she never pressured herself and that her expressions of gratitude to him were sincere. Instead of continuing to tease her, Lenel puts a yellow scarf around her neck, telling her to wear it until he figures out how to treat her bruise. He then tells her to get ready because he's going to close the store today to show her the Villain Street, the city of Vanel. This is Giselle's first time leaving their new store, and she is astonished to find it outside the main street. Lenel proudly introduces the several shops around, such as the grocery store, the largest sweet shop, and the famous sausage vendor, while our girl's eyes sparkle and she can't wait to eat them all. It seems like Lenel chose this spot specifically so Giselle can eat all the food she wants. In the novel, Vanel is a city that only villains can enter, and there's only one rule: never raise a commotion or you will be banished. She then mentions that she knows this is Wayne Aore's home base, which surprises Lenel, so he asks what else she knows about him. She is not lying when she says she knows just a bit about him and has no personal information, because the novel merely describes Wayne as a very gorgeous man with silver hair. Their talk is interrupted short as Giselle's stomach grumbles from hunger, making Lenel giggle, so they go to a restaurant. The yellow chick is now completely full, while Lenel smiles but realizes that feeding her will be expensive. She then starts running and humming around the streets, relieved that she no longer has to hide, and looks at Lenel with the sweetest smile, expressing that Vanel is now her second home, making him blush. Suddenly, a quickly moving carriage passes them, nearly hitting Giselle if Lenel wasn't there to grab her. She is surprised, though, when he claims that the carriage isn't to blame because it's the Vanel way, and that since people aren't supposed to cause a fuss, you're allowed to silently take care of any problems. He then goes on to tell her to always bring Gilberton with her whenever she goes out, accidentally revealing that Gilberton is Wayne's subordinate who follows his orders. This news thrills Giselle because it implies that Wayne is asking Gilberton to protect her. Once again, her eyes shine, and she asks Lenel an overwhelming number of questions, including whether or not she would ever meet the chief, which annoys Lenel. But when Giselle says she's positive Wayne is incredibly handsome, Lenel starts acting shy. I knew it! He's the real Wayne Aore! She keeps complimenting his handsomeness to the point where Lenel has to cover his face in embarrassment. Oh, cutie! Giselle is eager to see Wayne even once because she has never seen a silver-haired man before, while Lenel wonders if she never liked black hair. This surprises Giselle, who frankly asks whether he is jealous of his own chief's charms. While walking back to their store, Lenel asks her about Dylan's fate, and when he learns that he would be killed by Wayne, he snickers evilly. What's the beef between the two, Lenel accompanies her to the store, and before he leaves, he brings out the butterflies. Yay! This time, he shares their names, Ren and Van, because they can only converse if the other person knows their identities. He's really beginning to trust our girl. However, it appears that the butterflies were cuter when they couldn't talk, as they are now constantly pestering Giselle for being lazy and eating. She then decides to write down the upcoming events in the novel. The first part is finished, which is when Giselle exits the story. And the second part is when Wayne finally appears, orchestrating an event known as the Great Assembly that highlights the power of the Black Mages. At this point, Viviana's life is critical due to the curse Giselle cast upon her before her death. However, she suddenly realizes that things are becoming complicated. This section of the novel never actually occurred, and the real Giselle has only just summoned her. This indicates that Viviana is no longer cursed and is powerful. Therefore, the villains could get defeated. Does that mean any insight into the future that she has is, in simple terms, almost useless? She begins creating guesses in her head, believing that if she could simply fulfill the curse, the novel would go as it should. Just then, Windria comes, so she takes advantage of the chance to ask her if crafting curses is difficult. To which Windria responds that it can be learned, but she isn't currently accepting disciples, causing Ten to appear sobbing as he claims to be her lone disciple. Meanwhile, Lenel observes Wayne and the other black mage interrogating the spy, but when he refuses to disclose any information, Lenel steps in. Wayne then orders the other mages to leave the room, leaving only himself, Lenel, and the spy. After shoving a rag into the spy's mouth, Lenel uses his power to summon a chair, where he sits like a boss while Wayne stands by him. Despite the gravity of the situation, Lenel decides to ask Wayne how much magic is required to achieve flawless silver hair. Giselle's preference for silver hair is something he just can't seem to get past. Wayne is confused because Lenel dislikes it when even a single strand of silver hair sticks out. And he is even more startled when our lover boy blushes as he recalls Giselle complimenting his silver hair. Our guy is really falling even deeper. Wayne believes he's becoming crazy, much like his employee Giselle, but more like crazy in love, sir. Speaking of Giselle, Wayne expresses his disbelief that Lenel moved the store to Vanel, considering that he always stated it was boring because the location was safe, which is why he opened it near where the knights are. Lenel only grins and explains that his new hire is fragile, and since the mark that Dylan placed on Giselle's neck may be located, hiding in Vanel is the best option. He then instructs Wayne to stop by the shop when he's finished with his duty to meet his biggest fan, Giselle, whom he has promoted to full-time employee. Wayne did hear from Vadrio that the store's operations were running nicely due to her, which leads him to assume that the infamous Wicked Witch Giselle had truly lost her mind. Since anyone who encounters Giselle will be unable to tell her apart from the actual Giselle, Lenel understands that they will truly believe she's insane, and he is pleased that the only person who recognizes her for who she truly is him. Anyway, he's put his adorable chick inside for the time being and is getting down to business. Lenel emits an evil aura, making the spy shudder in fear as he prepares to tamper with his head and release him. He plans to use the guy as amusing bait, so Dylan's attention will be diverted instead of chasing Giselle. That night, Giselle sits at the counter, groaning as she looks at Ten, who ends up crying in his sleep while patiently waiting to see Windria. At the same time, Ren, the red butterfly, has had enough of Ten and is going to poison him for disturbing their night. But Giselle manages to stop the furious butterfly in time. She then stops Van as well, as he's ready to attack Ten with his stinger. Even the butterflies are villains. Not only has she just twice saved Ten's life, but it appears that someone else is equally displeased with Ten's presence. Lenel, who has just shown up. Lenel is irritated and claims that he did not move the store just so she could bring her boyfriend whenever she wanted, which confuses Giselle and prompts her to clarify that Ten is only Windria's pupil. She then touches her scarf and, with a distressed expression, declares that she has more important things to worry about than finding a lover, which led Lenel to calm down and apologize to her while messing up her hair. They are really getting comfortable with each other. After they clear the air, she goes on a tirade about how the customers at the new site don't respect their store's operating hours. She takes Ten and Windria's situation as an example, where Windria has started arriving at the shop early to avoid Ten, while the poor apprentice waits for her all day at the store. Speaking of Miss Windria, she comes in just in time and begins to sweat a lot as she notices Lenel in the shop. Whoopsie, bad timing for you, miss. Lenel tells their valued customer, Windria, to respect their business hours with a menacing expression hidden beneath his grin. After that, he approaches the table where Ten is fast asleep and intimidatingly tells her to resolve any issues she may have with the man, or else he will, which makes Windria grab Ten and run away in an instant. He's such a her wish is my command type of guy. After they depart, Giselle starts to question Lenel's late-night visit to their store, and he timidly explains that he came to see how she was doing because there was a man in their store. Giselle encourages him to return to his house, so he can relax now that he knows that she's not in danger, but he refuses to leave, even after she explains that their store only has one room. Now that she thinks about it, the way Lenel pushes Ten out, thinking she's her lover, plus the fact that he wants to sleep in the same room, is sending her a signal and making her blush so much. In a fit of panic, she yells out to clarify that she has no interest in dating coworkers, as she assumes Lenel likes her. It's funny how she can completely derail any mood. Lenel sighs and chooses to go to bed, which annoys Giselle because it means she must sleep near the counter. So he bribes her with a vacation tomorrow, but it isn't enough to convince our girl. But as he mentions that the vacation is paid for, her mood immediately changes, and she happily wishes him goodnight. In the end, he uses magic to place a bed near the counter and give Giselle the room, so he's clearly just lovingly teasing her. The next day, our ball of sunshine wakes up joyfully, intending to rest the entire day. But she is surprised to see Lenel at the counter and hasn't yet left. He then stands up and urges Giselle to get ready to go grab breakfast and stroll around because it's her vacation. But it appears that these two have different definitions of vacation. For Giselle, it means rest, while for Lenel, it means going out and playing. She then argues that even if she chose to play around, she would prefer not to do it with him, her boss, because it will feel like overtime, leading Lenel to remind her that Vanel is a home for criminals, and the wicked witch Giselle Lloydsfin has many enemies. Gilberton is busy, therefore Lenel will accompany her today, as he also intends to get her neck bruise examined. After hearing that Lenel knows where she may receive care for her bruises, which are still fresh and seem to be healing slowly because of Dylan's mana, Giselle's attitude softened. She decides to spend her vacation with her boss Lenel, but he is shocked to hear that she is wearing her work attire since she is short on clothes. Even if her explanations about spending her money on food and the higher-than-usual pricing in Vanel continue to baffle Lenel, he persists in urging her to eat and go shopping for clothes next. She is so ecstatic after eating all of that great food that she thanks Lenel for being a good boss and promises to stay loyal to him. She's such a child, really cute. Lenel worries that she might get sick because she ate too much, which makes her pout, and explains that she did not eat that much. However, she completely forgets that they are on their way to buy clothes and now regrets eating so much. The owner of the boutique greets them but is surprised to see her. The lady is one of her fans and recognizes her as Giselle Lloydsfin, the first villain to enter Soltia Tower and come out alive. She is in the middle of a conversation with Giselle when Lenel interrupts and tells her to show them the clothes they have, which she grudgingly complies with. As they walk back to the streets after shopping, she asks if she can study magic to protect herself, but he tells her that there is no such thing as self-defense magic, and that not everyone has magical powers. Giselle acknowledges that magical abilities are innate, but her goal is to obtain a potion that can instantly enhance magical abilities for those who do not have any. This time, Lenel earnestly tells her that attempting to develop magical talents when none exist is dangerous. Giselle then discovers that magical attributes and the size of their magic vessel that holds their powers are determined at birth. She also learns that there is no fundamental difference between divine and magical strength, which surprises her. When Lenel notices her confused expression, he stops and tells her to get going while she's still processing what he just told her, because all she knows is that divine power is a god's blessing. And if magical and divine power are just the same, what distinguishes a black mage from a white mage? Is this basically just racism? When Lenel calls for her, she stops thinking and realizes that they are at a place he mentioned where she can get help for her bruise. She chases after him as he knocks on the door. They hear some noises inside, and he realizes it's too late to warn her, so he embraces her to keep her safe, just as the house explodes. Of course, the explosion isn't enough to harm Lenel, but even with his protection magic, he can't help but worry about Giselle. Then a young man with glasses emerges from the smoke, explaining that the bomb he was constructing had accidentally gone off. Lenel looks really annoyed at the guy right now and gives off an evil vibe, while behind him is a bright, confused chick. As the saying goes, opposites attract. They are so adorable together. The man introduces himself to Giselle as Mitchell, a villain who has previously bombed the Imperial Palace. He goes on to commend her for how well known she is because of her large bounty. Lenel interrupts Mitchell just as he is about to shake hands with her, and he looks at him with absolute scorn. Yup, no touchy. Lenel then asks him where Emily is, so Mitchell leads him to her room and departs exactly as Lenel demands. Lenel unlocks the door, and Giselle is startled to realize that it isn't just any average room, since it appears quite gloomy and scary. As Giselle shrinks from fear, Lenel can't help but giggle and reaches out to hold her hand as they enter. That's really smooth, sir. Really smooth. While walking into the dark room, she spots a horrifying doll's head on the floor and makes eye contact with it, prompting her to scream and clutch Lenel's arm, fearing that it may curse her. No one is allowed to scare our girl, not even this poor doll, so Lenel kicks it like a soccer ball. However, she is still terrified and unable to move, so this cunning, charming guy offers to carry her, a gesture that makes her so red, but quickly dodges his touch, causing Lenel to express so much disbelief at her sudden decision to be cursed rather than be carried by him. Look at his confused face! But then he smiles when Giselle, who is shy, reveals that she is heavy because of all the food she ate this morning. They keep moving till they come across Emily, an elderly lady who is currently washing a cloth in a magic-filled wooden basin. Lenel crouches to greet the granny, and as soon as Emily recognizes him, she smiles and begins messing his hair. Giselle, who is watching them, is startled to see Lenel in such a relaxed state for the first time. He looks so approachable, such a cutie! Emily calling her granddaughter-in-law makes her redden, but she's happy to know that Emily is joking. After all, she and Lenel don't look anything like each other. And even with the scarf, Emily could see that the bruise on Giselle's neck is quite alarming. Emily instructs her to remove the scarf so she may examine her neck, which Giselle does, but then hits her own head because she neglected to greet the old lady first. She bows and introduces herself as a trainee employee at Lenel's store, but she is taken aback when Lenel interrupts and announces that she is now a full-time employee. He smiles and tells her that she was promoted a few days ago, which makes her very happy, but she gets grumpy at Lenel for telling her so late. Emily can't help but laugh since they look like a cat and a chick fighting. After their short argument, Lenel requests that Emily make Giselle a scarf to cover her bruise, so Granny examines her neck and verifies that it will be challenging to conceal. Still, it appears to be within this Granny's capabilities, so she proceeds to cover her magical basin with a cloth, and it starts to light. After a while, the Granny speaks up and says it will take a week to make Giselle a scarf, as she needs to create many layers of magic that will cover the bruise. Lenel accepts and guarantees to come back in a week, but just as they are about to leave, Emily asks him to help her thread a needle. He immediately turns away and declines, but our girl feels bad for the Granny and decides to help her, even though Lenel stops her. Giselle falls for this cunning Granny's trap because, well, it seems like she needs her help threading not one, but a whole bunch of needles. They finally return to their store that afternoon, and Giselle appears to regret helping Granny earlier, as she looks so tired and her hands are still shaking. Lenel reveals that Emily is a cursed doll maker who is actually the best at threading but enjoys pretending to be weak in order to poke fun at others. Giselle sobs as she looks at her shaky hand, recalling how hard she and Lenel struggled with threading earlier. OMG, our guy totally could have waited for her to finish, but instead he went ahead and helped her, which is such a green flag. Giselle later discovers that her bruise is a tracking brand, so Lenel advises her to always go out with either him or Gilberton. He appears so relaxed as he reads a book, leading Giselle to believe that Wayne must have fired him from his job and is now spending time at the store that she can't feel her own vacation. Speaking of that, Lenel has prepared a box full of snacks for her so she can eat in her room and relax, which she gladly accepts, but blushingly assures him that she is not the type of employee who sits idle while the boss is around. She walks cheerfully to her room while Lenel appears pleased with what he has accomplished. She's really a cutie. It's been a while since Giselle came out of her room, which makes Lenel concerned, so he knocks on her door when he hears her faintly asking for help. Rushing to her room, he discovers that Giselle is just sleep-talking, which brings a sense of relief to him. Girl is giving him a heart attack. He then sits next to her and connects his worry to how the black mages feel about their chicks, recalling that they used to build a chicken coop to help them feel better. He glances around her room and notices how empty it is, recognizing that Giselle is always alone in their store, yet she does all of the cooking and cleaning herself, making her quite independent and strong. He enjoys brushing her curls when he finds her hair roots turning black, and assumes it's a side effect of the forbidden magic. Our girl's natural hair color is black, so he could be correct. He inspects Giselle's face in an effort to spot any other changes, but he eventually gives up since, as he has never seen the real Giselle Lloydsvin, he will never be able to tell the difference. Then his eyes wander over her neck, frustrated that Dylan did this to her and wishing he could simply kill the knight. Giselle wakes up and shivers as she feels Lenel's hand on her neck, assuming he is about to finish her, which makes him chuckle. He recognizes her frailty and suddenly announces that he is naming her Giselle, while also telling her not to ever imitate Giselle Lloydsvin, not even in jokes. I believe this is his way of giving her own identity. Everything around them appears fuzzy and nice until Lenel announces that, in honor of her name, he will construct her the most grand chicken coop, causing Giselle to sit up and begin protesting that she's not a pet. She reminds him that she's a hired employee with a contract, which makes him laugh so hard. But she insists that if he wants to build her a coop, he should raise her salary instead. While Giselle pouts, Lenel can't stop laughing as he calls her my Giselle in his head, adoring that she's both hilarious and charming, and resolves to build her the best chicken coop. Is this a silent proposal and confession, sir? After that, Lenel rushes off to work, and Giselle is enjoying her alone time when she is surprised by a timid-looking customer. She is certain that she closed the door, so she urges him to go because they're not open today. But she can't say no when this guy begins begging to buy a wooden box. Giselle begins searching for the box, unaware that a man has dropped something on her back. A spider bites Giselle on the neck, and she quickly realizes that it's trying to escape. In her haste, she uses the wooden box to kill the spider. The ugly man then pretends he didn't do anything wrong by asking if she's okay before pressing his finger on the bite mark, which made Giselle turn around and touch her bleeding neck. After finding that she did not have insect bite medicine, this man, Tones, invites her to his clinic where he works as a pharmacist. Please remember that everyone is a villain. He claims that this shop isn't far away and that they can go there right now, but Giselle doesn't trust him and declines, stating that she still needs to clean the store, so he must leave. After Tones leaves, Ren confirms to Giselle that she did secure their doors, implying that the person entered without permission. She then licks the blood on her neck and tastes oranges, which means that Tones may have released a poisonous spider on her. Giselle then tells Windria about this, which reminds Windria that Sullen had mentioned that there was a quack pharmacist around who had been selling painkillers disguised as medicine. Windria then begins to worry if Lenel ever disclosed anything about his plans for Ten, and is comforted when Giselle affirms that the boss said nothing. Regarding Ten, Giselle is quite intrigued by Windria's reasoning for not wanting to accept him as a student. Windria says that the reason is that Ten's magical vessel is not enough and lacks potential. That seems so tragic. So she wonders if a person's magical vessel can't be increased and discovers that there is a way, but no one dares to try it. To broaden a person's magic vessel, they must carve it out using magic of their opposing attribute. And because the magic vessel is a mage's heart and source of power, permitting someone's magic to enter it poses a significant risk of permanent damage or even death. The sun has set, and for some reason, she's feeling down about Lenel not having gotten in touch with her yet. She starts thinking about him and whispers under her breath that she misses him. As if that were the magic phrase, Lenel, who is more dashing than ever, suddenly appears before her. The butterflies must have reported it to him 0.0 seconds, and voila! And that's it for today, guys. What did you think? As always, don't forget to like the video and comment for the next part so we know you want more. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for updates. See you in the next one!